Hello, Alicia. Thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to speaking with you. You're Germany's first certified matchmaker, and I'm really looking forward to exploring and unpacking the science of matchmaking together with you. We're really committed to bringing authenticity back into dating. As you know, dating apps today are all about superficial matches, the endless swipes and chats, and you hardly meet anybody. So really looking forward to this talk. But before we get into it, I would love to hear your story, your journey so far, and what drew you to this field.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on today. It's going to be a pleasure to speak with you. As you said, I'm Alysia Tofflemire. I am the founder of Alto Matchmaking, and I'm also Germany's first certified matchmaker. Personally, I've been an expat for over 20 years, having lived in Belgium and England and Germany. And throughout that whole experience, I and many of my friends have had terrible dating experiences. So, drawing from that, it kind of spurred me into diving a bit deeper into what the science of that actually is. My background is actually in sociology and business management. So combining all of that made me really want to approach my business with more structure and intentionality.
Okay, great. That's a very interesting background. So, without further ado, let's just dive into it. You talk about the science of matchmaking. What does that really mean?
So when I talk about science of matchmaking, it's really a combination of psychology, relationship science, and more data-driven approach rather than just kind of randomly dating. Um,
Hmm.
so there's a lot of different frameworks that I use, from attachment theory to neuroscience, and also Gottman's research on conflict resolution. There are so many great studies and scientific approaches that we can use now. And I think those are all tools that we should be using when it comes to dating in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean that totally resonates with me. I'm also from a business product background, and we always talk about really figuring out from data what's really happening, what's the root cause. And I imagine if somebody could tell me in my dating journey, we're sometimes so there's so many blind spots that we have, and somebody can really help us unpack that, it would have made a world of difference. So further build on this, what do you think are some of those surprising factors that actually influence compatibility? Because we all use this umbrella term pretty much, but let's unpack that.
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things that comes to my mind is actually emotional regulation. So, how does this
Hmm.
person that you're trying to date handle stress and handle conflict? Because it's those kind of things that are going to predict long term compatibility much better than chemistry, which might be
Hmm.
amazing at first, but will start to fade as your hormones regulate. So, it's really about how this person is going to show up when things are hard that matters to me.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing, which is
Uh-huh.
unfortunately not so easy to fix, is timing. I think,
Hmm.
being ready for a relationship is something that is so important on both sides, and that just has to click.
Absolutely. I mean, when I'm hearing it, it all makes so much sense. But when you are in that journey, you don't really pay attention to these such important things.
Exactly.
Um, what are the other, let's say, for lack of better words, what are the other wrong things we do when we are sort of dating online?
Well, I think we can easily fall into a trap of the dating apps themselves, and it's not our fault. I think dating
Hmm.
apps have just become these money-making machines, and that's how their business
Hmm.
model works. So users are encouraged to swipe quickly, to get that dopamine hit, to filter
Hmm.
for things that the apps make out to be very important. But in reality, height doesn't really matter so much, I'm sorry to say to some people. Um, but you're making these quick decisions based on a half a second of a visual image. And this is not
Hmm.
how humans are meant to connect. But
Hmm.
again, I don't want
Absolutely.
to place blame on anyone, and dating apps don't have filters for values. So you can't go on
Hmm.
there and look for someone who's kind or empathetic or ready for a relationship necessarily. Um, so I think dating apps can be used as a tool, but you have to be really mindful and know what you want going into using an app like that.
Absolutely. And I think my sense is people are actually realizing it today. Let's bring discussion a little bit into the Berlin dating scene. Berlin, I'm always fascinated with Berlin. It's so multicultural. It's just so much happening all the time in Berlin.
Yeah.
But still, it's kind of a very challenging place, I think, for dating. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, that it's a challenging place, and I've experienced it myself, so I can empathize. But I think contrary to popular opinion, Berlin can be a really great place to date. As you say, there's
Mhm,
so much going on, it's so diverse, there's so many independent, interesting thinkers in this city. Um, but I think also that independence can be the challenge. So people are very
mhm,
busy, people are very transient, moving around a lot. And a lot of people are hesitant to commit because there might be something else around the corner. And that's not only in
mhm.
Berlin, I think that's in any big city and in any place
Yeah,
where you're using the apps quite a bit. I think
yeah.
also one thing I wanted to mention about that was when you add this layer of expats, and Berlin is an increasingly
Mhm,
attractive city for expats, people are coming in
mhm.
and out, so you get this really exciting culture, but it's a big challenge when it comes to dating. So that's why I always say being intentional about what you're looking for is even more important in that scenario.
Absolutely. I think this word being intentional is comes with a lot of responsibility as well. So when we talk about online, of course, this you keep swiping. It gives you the sense of control, but you're not. You're also being very casual.
Yeah.
And when you're meeting somebody in person, I think that's also has its fears and challenges. How do you think people should approach that, or what mistakes can people make when really trying to meet somebody today?
So one big mistake, if you want to use that word, I see when it comes to people dating, and especially people who are not familiar with dating as much, is trying
Mhm,
to optimize the experience. So really trying to they almost treat it as a job interview or a task that needs to
mhm,
be completed instead of enjoying the experience. It's more about, okay, how do I make this person like me? I want to get to the second date. And you really
mhm,
lose the human connection there. So when you're trying to like check off the boxes and move forward in a way that's an optimized experience,
mhm.
I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because yeah, the journey itself is something you should be enjoying, and I would really recommend to people that are learning how to date in a more healthy way to just
Mhm.
slow down and think about how does this person make me feel and how does what we are doing make me feel. That's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Every word you're saying sort of makes so much sense. And they're also very loaded in the sense that, especially this, what you said, you often treat it as an interview, and especially people who are not so aware of dating. And I would, to pick someone, let's say an introvert person,
Mhm.
often lacks in those sort of social skills. Dating healthy. So, what would you recommend to people who are maybe, let's say, fall in the introvert bucket or actually are very busy, the busy professionals that we often find in Berlin?
Yeah, so you might not believe this, but I consider myself an introvert. So I'm very well versed at trying to, make the experience more pleasant for that. And what I find works really well is structured activities. So rather than having,
Mhm,
let's have a coffee someday. I This is actually what
mhm,
really drew me to your platform, Vivi, because you're offering a
mhm,
structured activity where an introvert could then know more about what they're going to do, what's expected of them, when to show up, and can focus on the moment instead of worrying about the social setting or what's going to be an unknown. Um, I think so. You also asked me
okay.
professionals.
Mhm,
I,
mhm,
I The same kind of thing. I think professionals are definitely more advanced in their career. They have a more demanding schedule in many cases. So having something in their calendar already can really help. Um, because a lot of times when you're dating online, actually making an appointment is the tricky part. So moving from the app to reality often doesn't
mhm,
happen because you're too busy.
mhm.
So if there is something on the calendar, you know it, you're going to see it there, you're going to be more prepared to show up.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a good segue to also talk about Vivi. That was exactly how this idea shaped up, in the sense you swipe, you chat, you hardly meet anybody,
Hmm.
and when you do, there's just so much pressure of this first date.
Yeah.
So if you already sort of touched on it, but if you had to sort of talk a little bit more about on these activity based, let's say of VV compared to the swiping culture, how do you see those worlds?
Yeah. So it overlaps a little bit with my ethos in how I arrange dates for my clients. So part of my
Hmm.
service is actually to arrange the first date because for a lot of people,
Hmm.
as I just was saying, that can be a huge obstacle. It feels really scary sometimes. And in a city where
Uh-huh.
you might not be as familiar as your hometown, for example, it can be hard to choose a venue and know about if it's romantic or not, or what are you going to do. So
Hmm.
taking that stress out of the date planning is a really key experience to being able to enjoy the date. So I think what Vivi does,
Hmm.
offering that, um, it's yeah, it's a great opportunity for daters to move past that stress.
Absolutely. And I think just the fabricated sort of swiping compared to this should also bring more authenticity into the experience, right? Okay, I think we've talked a lot about how those worlds differ, and how sort of starting from an activity that you sort of enjoy would ease out the pressure. The art of matchmaking is I don't know. I mean, you know more. I mean, it's not magic, but there are some ingredients, right? So, what would you say? What are the most important ingredient or magic ingredient, if you will, for love, in that
Oh.
sense?
Well, then I would really be a magician if I could make that happen. Um, what I've seen, so I'll say it like this: what I've seen in the most healthy daters, to put it
Mhm,
diplomatically, is a real curiosity. So an open-mindedness to really
mhm,
get to know the other person and get out of their head a little bit more. Be open to receiving this other person's energy and what they can learn from this other person and how they can grow together.
mhm. Absolutely. I think you talked about some frameworks and how you approach this. Is there anything you would like to give away to people who would help them sort of uncover their blind spots and maybe become more open?
Yeah, I would love to. One of the things that I always do with clients is a relationship values checklist or workshop sometimes we do together. And that's
Hmm.
something that I think people are not so keen on these days. It does take a little bit of time and a little bit of self reflection, but it's so worth it. You basically only have to spend 10, 20 minutes sitting down, write down the top 5 values that you want to have in your
Hmm.
relationship. So I
Hmm.
do have a tool on my website for this that's available for free, but right now I can already give you some examples like empathy, ambition, kindness,
Hmm.
family oriented. These types of things, just having a few minutes to self reflect on what is important to you can make such a big difference when it comes to meeting others. Because they'll also be able to tell when you show up for that date that you've done that work, and that's extremely attractive.
Absolutely. I think that is so powerful, and to have that sort of self awareness, I think definitely needs some sort of support if you're not really into it. And I'm sure you would be such a great support in such activities.
Sure.
Great. We've talked about a lot of things, and I feel each topic here needs its own 30 minutes to dive into. But if there are any sort of closing thoughts you would want to give away to the audience.
Yeah, I think, part of the reason I'm here today is to really support what you're doing with Vivi. And um, it seems like a small tool to use, but it can really change your dating experience if you are more willing to get out and actually meet people and go back to the way people used to date for thousands of years. Well, hundreds of years, let's say. Um, and just, yeah, make those human connections, even if it doesn't turn out to be a romantic connection. interacting with people that share the same beliefs and values and worldviews as you can be so deeply fulfilling on a human level. So I just say, don't be afraid to meet new people. Coming out of the pandemic times, it can be a little challenging for sure. I understand that, but I think making a collective effort to getting back to a community is really important.
Thank you so much for those words, Malaysia, and really looking forward to sort of do one of these sessions again with you, where we can dive into specific topics. I really like understanding yourself in terms of values. I think that's such a powerful tool to go out there and really handle dating not as a project or as another interview, but really something more soulful.
Yeah, I would love to speak more. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.